So we're back on the variegated wash. This is the one that we did wet on wet, so it has a much softer look than the other one. I'll show you the other one in a minute. So for this one, what we're going to do is I'm back using my 1/4 inch sword brush. This is a graduate from Dale Rowley, but any brand or any style will do. I'd recommend don't go for anything too big because we're working on such small pieces of paper. These sheets are, what, 7.5 by 5, I think. So yeah, about 7.5 by 5 or 5.5. So they're not very big sheets of paper. So all we want to do is take a little bit of your raw sienna and mix it with a tiny bit of your ultramarine blue, and it will just give you a slightly greeny tinge. That's all it is. It's not a bright green by any means of the world. It's just a greeny tinge, and that's all we want. And then I'm going to work, depending on whether you're left or right-handed, I'm going to work from left towards right. If you're left-handed, you probably want to work the other way. And I've got some tissue, and I'm just ripping the bottom edge of the tissue just to make some sort of shapes, really, more than anything, so that we don't end up with a completely flat, boring edge. And then I'm going to place that across here. Because I'm working from left to right, then I'm going to have it higher on the left-hand side than on the right-hand side. If you're left-handed, you may well want to do it the other way around. It really doesn't matter, it's up to you. So I've got my brush. I've picked up my mixed colour. I don't want a massive amount on there, so I'm just touching it off slightly. And then very lightly, the very lightest stroke you can imagine, I'm just using to pull up from one end of the paper to the other. So the very lightest stroke you can imagine. And I'm just going to, and I want these to be different heights. So I'm starting higher up. And all I'm doing is creating some background foliage, if you like. Some of them are straighter, some of them are angled over. It doesn't matter. You do it any way you like. If you really feel that you can't get along with this brush, then by all means do it with a different brush. So here, so it's just giving this edge of it a greeny tint. I'm going to pull this up a bit higher. So I'm just using the side of the brush at the moment, or the flat blade of the brush on its side. Now I'm picking up the same colour, but it's got slightly more of the blue in. So it's exactly the same, but it's got slightly more of the blue in. Again, it's a greeny tinge, and I'm using this lower down. I'm overlapping it though. I'm not allowing them to be separated as such. I'm still using the full width of the brush. And now I'm going to turn the brush onto its sword edge, and I'm just going to drag the brush up and through. And you can see that you can get some really nice, fine, grass-like lines coming through. Again, try not to put too much pressure on the brush. Try and keep it light. Maybe rest your arm, your elbow down, and just pull it through. You ignore what's underneath. It's not relevant at this moment. So I'm still working with the same colours, but I'm gradually adding little touches, more of the blue or more of the yellow as we move along. And I think that's probably going to be enough, really. Don't want to overdo it. And then that darker bluey colour, I'm just going to, again, very lightly drag a few more bits up from the bottom. Just along this bottom edge really. But I don't want to cover everything else up. I don't want it to become a competition. You need to be able to see all the other colours coming through at the same time. So I quite like the broken edged effect that you can get by lightly pulling up on this brush. So we've got that. I'm swapping back now to my round brush. Going to put my protection paper in place. Picking up the alizarin crimson, and yes, you've probably guessed it by now, we're going to do a bit of splattering on here. So this is my preferred method of splattering. I do often use my thumb or drag the brush against a finger. It's up to you. Again, if you get a build-up of paint on the handle, just roll it off on your tissue. So all the way across. Keep your brushes moving. And if you angle it one way, your splatter will go that way. And if you angle it the other, the splatter's going to move the other way. Now you could try the raw sienna, but the chances are it's not going to be strong enough to hold up on this. So if that's the case and you really want to, you could go and add in a little bit of maybe cad yellow. I wouldn't go for anything too drastically strong because of the other tones in here, but I'm just gonna try a little bit of my raw sienna, see if it will hold up. Yeah, you can just sort of about see it. You probably will want to thicken the mix up, I would say. So you will want to add a little bit more pigment to the raw sienna that you've already mixed. And you don't have to worry about just keeping it on the top. I might move that up slightly again. There we go. And I'm even going to go in with some of the ultramarine. Wipe that off my brush. Pick up some of the ultramarine. Again, if your paint's been sitting for a little while, you might need to give it a little bit of a stir before you pick it up. Now we've got all sorts of wildflowers in here, including the lovely cornflower, which is how we're going to see it. Right, so I'm going to leave that there, wipe the handle of my brush off. These couple here, if you can see, there's a couple of the big splatters that have gone berserk. All I'm going to do, and I'm just going to use that one, is touch a little tiny bit of almost neat ultramarine into the middle of those splatters, because they've gone a bit big. So I'm just going to touch tiny bit of almost neat ultramarine blue into the middles. Let them bleed their own way through. And realistically, that will create the impression of poppies. So I'm going to go back with my raw sienna and my greeny bluey colour, and I'm just going to put a couple of more defined grasses in down here. Again, I'm still using my sword brush. you can pull through some of these, get some of those colours to run and bleed into it. For some reason the lighting is really not doing me any favours today. So I'm just catching and allowing some of these splatter colours to join in the fun. And that's it. You've got a painting. You've practiced numerous techniques. So I'm just putting some heavier leaves here. All I'm doing is long point down, pressing down on it and lifting. And that's just giving me a different variety around the bottom. And that's it, we're done. So happy painting, enjoy it, and let it dry. If you feel it wants more splatter, hang on to your paper so that you can put it back in place to add a little bit more if you want to. But overall, I think that looks quite nice, and it's a nice little exercise. Okay, bye.